Do you ever feel like you're just barely keeping your head above the water? It's like the waves are crashing over you and you're struggling to stay afloat? If so, I want you to remember this truth. When you feel like you're drowning in fear, Jesus is reaching for you. Let me explain. In Matthew chapter 14, we read about an event that took place during Jesus' earthly ministry. Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him by boat across the Sea of Galilee, and he went up on a mountain to pray. As the night wore on, the wind picked up and the waves grew, and the boat was now being battered by the wind and the waves. The disciples were far from land, and it appeared as though they would drown. In the middle of the night, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. And this sight terrified them. They cried out, "It's a ghost!" Imagine their surprise and their terror at seeing Jesus walking toward them on the water, right? They've spent the entire evening battling the elements, fighting for their very survival. And then out of the darkness appears what they believe to be a ghost. But Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." Then Peter, the disciple whom Jesus had previously called out of his net, answered Jesus and said, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water." So Jesus said to him, "Come." And Peter stepped out of the boat onto the water and onto the unknown and onto faith. And he walked toward Jesus. But when Peter started seeing the wind and the waves, he became afraid. Fear crept into his heart, and he began to sink. And he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him and said to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Then he got into the boat with them, and immediately the wind died down, and the storm was calmed. And they worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." What a powerful story. What can we learn from it? Well, first, let's notice how alone and afraid the disciples were at that moment. They were alone because they were far from land. They were afraid because they were in the midst of a raging storm. They felt helpless because the waves were crashing over them. Probably thought to themselves, "We're going to die. This is the end." Can you relate to that? Have you ever been through a storm in your life and felt like there was no hope? Like the waves were too high and you were going to drown? But notice what happens next. Jesus comes to them. Now, some people might look at this story and say, well, obviously Jesus didn't really walk on the water. It was a dream or some kind of hallucination, right? But if that's true, then why did Peter jump into the water and walk on the water? If it was a dream, why did he put his physical body onto the waves and risk drowning? No, this story is absolutely real. And it points us to the fact that Jesus is the one who calms the storms in our lives. Look at verse 29 again. It says that Peter got out of the boat and onto the waves and onto his faith, and he walked. Now I want you to notice something here. Peter didn't walk on the water until he stepped out of the boat. See, Peter was in the boat for most of the story, and he was safe in the boat. But when he wanted to experience more of God, he had to step out into the unknown, into the scary part, into the deep end. And that's where his faith was built. That's where his faith was strengthened. Are you in a situation in your life where you need to step out of the boat? Do you need to take a leap of faith and trust God for the outcome? Maybe it's a health issue that you need to surrender to God. Maybe it's a relationship that you need to fix or repair. Maybe it's a job or a career change that you've been putting off. Whatever it is, I want you to know this. When you step out of the boat and onto your faith, God will help you. He will strengthen you. He will never allow you to fall. So take courage. Trust in Jesus, because when you start sinking, He still reaches.